Greetings pimps. Welcome to yet another new series on my channel called True Tales. This will be a series that documents different stories, occurrences, etc. that have happened to me or others I know. As with my personal story series, the first one is what influenced me to begin this new idea. If you haven't checked that series out, the playlist is on my channel. I will return to it in the future but just haven't felt like it yet. I covered WRTP, Wings of Redemption, Carl Sherburne and Cult of Dusty so far. Now, on with the show. It shouldn't need to be stated that all the names in these stories will be changed and made up. I will also likely change dates and years just for that extra layer, but not enough to disrupt from the story itself, if you know what I'm saying. It all begins in early 2011. Bitcoin is still very much new and not that many people even know of its existence. We are over 2 years out from the arrest of Ross Ulbricht and the destruction of the Silk Road. I spend a lot of my spare time on the so-called deep web. That term probably spooks a lot of people these days, but in reality 90% of the deep web is perfectly fine. You won't find anything bad unless you go looking for it or you're just a little too curious. This is where I came across my associates, so to speak. You have probably heard of people buying drugs, hitmen, info, people, etc. but for the most part this is way over-dramatized by all the story compilations you see on YouTube. You have to remember people are people. The person on the other end of the screen isn't a ghost, monster, etc. They're human just like you. Of course this isn't taking it into account. A lot of the edgy, so to speak, deep websites have chats where you are talking to nothing more than an AI. Humans have to sleep. I spent most of my days perusing different chat rooms and message boards. Usually some conspiracy sites where you find several posts of files waiting to be accessed. There was one in particular I went to often. We'll refer to it as 0chan. It was more or less a crypto hub, or back then Bitcoin hub. No clue if it's still around today, but I would sincerely doubt it. Lots of long discussions on what we think the future of Bitcoin holds, as well as people buying and selling anything you can imagine. Most of this site was those who were quite obviously from the Middle East and countries where you could more easily avoid detection. That's a majority of what you'll find on the deep web from my experience. Well, that and obvious FBI or CIA plans. Let's be honest, those in the FBI and CIA don't have Garry Kasparov level IQs. It's near impossible to track anything or anyone on the deep web down for the most part anyway. Sites go down and pop up at insane rates. They also love to rebrand, so even if you found the site again you would have no idea it was the same one. Unless of course you were in the inner circle, so to speak. 0chan had a devoted group of 20 or so individuals that were the High Council, or whatever you want to call it. There wasn't an actual name. Those that were trusted by the showrunner or the admin, in other words. In real life FBI informants may take years to rat people out, but online they almost never go more than a week tops before blatantly blowing their cover. It's pretty easy to detect them once you know their tendencies. It will likely become a different game in the future once people raised in internet culture become old enough to be FBI and CIA, but until then they're a pure joke. The showrunner was a nice guy. Or girl, I never found out. We'll just call him or her SR from now on. I tended to assume SR was a guy since I was pretty certain he lived somewhere in the Middle East. Let's keep it real. The likelihood of a woman in the Middle East running a massive so-called crime syndicate was low. Not impossible though, but I digress, as it doesn't matter either way. SR came across as a light-hearted individual, but when it came to business there was an odd stone-cold nature about him, as if he could tell if you were on that BS or not. Most of the time spent was just banter to pass the time. There were likely more future millionaires in those chat rooms than you will come across in your lifetime. At least I'd like to think that anyway. The boards of 0chan had a numerous amount of nefarious offers. Every one of them more innocuous than the last. I never took any of them seriously, but I did take an interest in perusing out of curiosity. Most of them were obvious jokes, or at least seemed like it. The offers put up by SR and the inner circle were the only ones I would consider legitimate. To put it into words, nobody believes you have Miranda Cosgrove nudes to sell for Bitcoin. Mind you, this is 2011, so yeah. You get the drift of some of the false depravity that came across those boards. Or at least I hope it was false. There were never any cleaning contracts, so to speak, or at least I never saw any. SR would casually chat about hitmen he associated with in the Middle East time and time again, but I always assumed he left that realm of business to the real world. Something that Serious One would rather not leave an internet trail leading back to them, regardless of how anonymous and protected it all seems. SR had operations all over the world, or at the very least he made it seem that way. Too risky to do anything with public officials, he would always say. Much too risky. If you've watched deep web YouTube videos here and there, you probably know of the infamous bounties placed on high-ranking officials. An obvious honeypot, but that's a common story you hear in those top 10 videos. He put the chances of seeing such a payday at less than 5% and claimed even that chance was very generous. That world was of great interest to most on Zero Chan, and we even had dedicated fireside chats, so to speak, where we would just sit and listen to SR's stories. I have no idea if they were pre-recorded or not, but if I had to guess I would say so. Now Zero Chan was purely a message board. There were no photos or GIFs or anything besides through outgoing link or download. Of course, rule number one on the deep web and internet in general is never download anything unless you're 100% sure of what it is. No matter how inconspicuous, you never know what may be lurking. There was always some new clown complaining about a virus or malware. They didn't even get paid for that either. There were often offers on the boards for people to download specific files that were known Trojans or what have you, just to report on the results. Enough money to replace that burner laptop and a little extra, I guess. There was only one illicit Zero Chan board offer I took real interest in, and that, my friends, is the meat and potatoes of our story here today. It's a story of precise and lucky timing mixed with a bit of spice and just the right amount of flair. If you followed me on Twitter before I recently got banned, you may or may not be aware I am of Iranian descent. Never lived there, but I have been to most Middle Eastern countries on holiday. I had recently planned a flight to an unnamed country in the Middle East. Let's just say it was one the USA hasn't practically nuked, yet anyway. The idea was to chill in its bustling capital city with the few friends I knew there. Nothing wild, simply a fun time shooting off some full-auto AK-47s and whatnot. Just your typical good time. I was scrolling Zero Chan one last time before leaving to catch the first flight when something from SR under said country caught my eye. Poacher offer. Firearm payment. Now, on this site there was a numerous amount of lingo that didn't directly mean the words it was saying. Long story short, a poacher offer is a theft job. I tossed the idea back and forth in my head for a few hours, and right before heading to bed I decided to go to at least step 1 on the offer. SR, a few other members and I had struck up a conversation, and I half-jokingly pinned an interest into it. There was a large Bitcoin mining task going on right nearby the place I had already booked. I don't know how SR got this information, but I certainly wasn't going to go snooping with questions. One of his associates had already booked the top floor suite under an assumed name, and according to SR1 would be providing with the fake ID just in case any funny business went down. The chances they ask an Iranian man for an ID check were low though. Just give them the name on the reservation and you're good to go. The target item was a very specific drive. The only cold wallet in the place that SR's supposed associate has the keys to. He's the one who tipped him off and asked for a poacher. I decide to take SR up on the offer, and now that everything is in place there's nothing left but to put the plan into action. I land in country and make my way to the hotel, which is what city folk would call a brief ride or walk away. Now, my plans were to stay my originally scheduled 2 weeks and complete the operation at the ending moment and make haste to the flight back home. 2 weeks of just chilling with friends. I tried to put it out of my mind, but you know there's always that little urge in the back of your brain. We got to shoot some guns and blow some crap up. Awesome fun time. You've likely seen those videos of Middle Eastern parties where everyone is shooting into the sky. That's practically every day if you want it to be and have the money, of course. Full auto weapons are much cheaper than in the USA. It gets to the final day. The flight leaves early, so if everything goes smoothly I'm in and out before anyone's had their breakfast. Early AM in this country is a beautiful sight to behold. The sun is just starting to rise and the streets are all but empty. There's not a deathly-looking smog over the place like in parts of the USA. One can truly enjoy the view. But I had the previous 2 weeks to do that. This was the grand finale. I don't have anything but my car keys and wallet. My friends always say to pack light, and this time there was reason for it. I didn't want to fiddle with a bag on my way out on the plane. I have my car keys to hopefully loop the drive and praying it makes it as inconspicuous as possible. I was also in possession of a key to the building along with the fake ID. It was a typical office workplace with desks and computers strewn about in line. Kind of a weird uncanny valley feeling seeing something so familiar in such a foreign place, so to speak. According to the information I was given, I was going to be entering 20 minutes before the janitor came in and opened up for his shift. Just enough time to use the crew layout they gave me to locate the precise whereabouts of the target. Seemed simple enough. In and out, and if anything goes south I have the fake ID of someone who apparently works there. That's all I had to do. I played it through my head several times on the way there. In, out and right to the airport. I was informed the side emergency exit was the best way and uncloset to the subject. Pretty much just like opening up a GameStop as the key holder. Walked up as casually as possible, put the key in the hole, and walked right in. A funny part looking back now is I had one of those masks on that everybody wears these days due to the virus. More conspicuous than a stereotypical ski mask. You don't really even notice it on people until they're right on you. As I entered the doorway I breathed a huge sigh of relief as the entire place seemed dead empty. SR said there was a small chance there were already people there. Sometimes there's unpredictable and unforeseeable business meetings. No sweat at all. Walked in, went straight to the spot on the map following the line drawn on it, poached the item and made my way back the path I came. For a brief moment I thought I was lost in a maze of desks and computers, but I made it back out onto the street. Not a moment too soon either. As I was across the street making my way to the airport I caught eye of what I assume was the janitor arriving for his morning shift. The rest of the people weren't due until my flight was long since departed, so I was hoping I was safe in my assumption that it was all almost over. A janitor there to work his job wouldn't notice something so small and insignificant to him missing, would he? SR's associate promised that it wouldn't even be missed. As far as they're concerned it never happened, and the replacement wouldn't be figured out until the associate had fled the country as well. As for him, I don't know where he is now or even if he got away. I'd like to think he's out there somewhere in Europe or Asia living out his days in luxury. Approximately a week and a half after sending the product to SR I received my payment in the mail. 2 shiny gold-plated Desert Eagles. Both 50 calories a with several boxes of ammo. Illegal to ship in the USA, but not if you make it look like a case of car parts. Well, you get the point. I figured I probably should never go back onto Zero Chan again after that, but I just couldn't help but wonder how much was on that wallet. Obviously, even if I knew it was impossible for me to ever access it. Not your keys, not your coin, as they say. I decided to close down my Zero Chan account and have it all wiped from the boards, but not without first asking how much was on the USB. Mind you, this is 2011, so Bitcoin has yet to skyrocket to the moon it's at now. SR told me he wasn't selling a single penny until at least 10 years had passed, and here lies why I decided to start the story series. It's been 10 years now since I deleted my Zero Chan account, and I figure since Bitcoin rocketed up again SR likely sold now. I have no idea what the split was between him and his associate, but hell does it really matter. The last post I ever saw on Zero Chan was SR's brief response, "Yep, my brother 10,000 Bitcoin live in the flesh." Now in 2011 that's nowhere near what it is now, which I believe is a major reason why it wasn't missed or SR's associate just kept his promise. Who knows? Bitcoin as of this writing is at $54,000 each. Times that by 10,000 and now that's a lot of goddamn money. Of course I don't know if they sold before now or if SR kept his 10-year goal. Who knows? I'd like to think there's two tycoons out there, their bloodlines forever cemented, all because of a silly little scheme cooked up in 2011 when that magic internet money was worth almost nothing. You're probably thinking, Dan, you really got the worst end of the deal here. You would be right. But I digress. Sometimes in this life you help others reach their peak before you get to see yours. Anyways pimps, I hope you enjoyed this first episode of True Tales. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We out.